It's time for Don't Come Here, Stories of the Treasure Coast, where we talk about beautiful beaches, stunning sunrises, and unforgettable experiences. So, if you don't like that sort of thing, definitely don't come here. Now, here's your host, Joshua Flores.
Thank you so much. Once again, I am Joshua Flores. I'm going to be your host and tour guide to all of the amazing things that we have here in the Treasure Coast. Today's episode of Don't Come Here is actually one that I've been looking forward to doing. I'm a huge fan of Halloween. I love the spiritual time of year, and we are talking about ghosts on the Treasure Coast. I've got with me some of the most renowned paranormal investigators, and we're going to get some of their awesome stories with me. Let me go ahead and introduce you to my guests. My first guest here sitting to my right, he is a career law enforcement officer and educator. He is also the host and he runs the Indian River Hauntings Ghost Tours. And he also runs Paranormal Stakeout Radio on iHeartRadio. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Larry Lawson.
How you doing? Thanks for having me here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to have you. You are the paranormal investigator up in Indian River County. You take the north part of the Treasure Coast.
Well, I just happen to be the group that's up there. Yeah, it's correct.
There you go.
We run the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation, and Indian River Hauntings is our outreach.
Okay, very nice, very nice. Also, I would like to introduce everyone to my next guest. They are a husband and wife paranormal investigator team. Together, they have authored numerous books about the Treasure Coast, including the wildly popular, this one right here, Ghosts of the Treasure Coast. And they also host Portulano Ghost Tours. Mm-hmm. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Patricia and Patrick Mesmer. Thank you guys so much for being here with me today. It's a pleasure to have you also. You guys are the official paranormal investigators of the southern part of the Treasure Coast, correct?
It work that way.
Yeah. So amongst the three of you, you guys pretty much have all of the ghosts, all of the paranormal activity, everything in the Treasure Coast pretty much handled, correct?
I guess that's one way to look at it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, so you guys are basically, and you are very well familiar with each other.
Absolutely. We refer back and forth all the time.
Right. So that's an awesome thing. Like here in the Treasure Coast, there's not necessarily that competition, but you guys work together. You guys are, all about working to make sure that each other and the whole Treasure Coast as a whole keeps growing with our knowledge of the paranormal and everything like that.
And Larry, you ran it you hosted it 1 year, and we've hosted it too, is Para-Unity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Correct.
And Para-Unity is just that. It's getting all the ghost investigation people in one room.
Okay.
Historically, and you guys kind of join in, if you had evidence, you kept it to yourself.
Yeah.
But if we're going to get any kind of value to what we do, it's that sharing of information.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's similar to like when archaeologists get a big find, you know what I mean? Like you share the information with the community so that way we can kind of, compare notes and, this goes with that. So I like how you guys opened up that.
It was Mary Jo and Greg, right? Started it?
I believe they did, yes.
Yeah. They're from Off the
Trail Paranormal.
Off the Trail Paranormal. And we partnered with them twice in Stewart, and then we were in Fellsmere.
Mm-hmm. Fellsmere.
And it was awesome because then we got to investigate 3 of the buildings that night. It's very popular. And again, if we want to be taken seriously, we have to share what we have.
Absolutely. There's no point in keeping the information to yourself if nobody else is going to be able to benefit from it.
Well, share not only what we found, but also the history of the areas. That history is an important part of all of this, because, and that's one thing that we all work hard on, is sharing the history with folks that join us on our tours also, in addition to the paranormal.
Right. So not only are we going out, like if we were to go on tour, which I'm looking forward to coming out and checking out the tours. I really want to do that. But when we go out on tour, not only are we looking around, looking for signs of some activity, there's also an educational aspect of it to where we're learning about the history of the people that were there, of the history of the location, stuff like that is very fascinating. That I love myself because there is that, I mean, and it doesn't necessarily come off as educational, I'm sure, because it's still fun, but you're still learning something from it. So it's not just, is Casper out here, but we're able to have some fun with it. That's really cool. Now, I do want to know, because, you know, obviously you've been doing the paranormal investigations for so long. Just what is it that got you interested in paranormal activity or interested in wanting to investigate the paranormal? Let's go ahead and start with you, Larry.
Well, my first encounter with the paranormal, if you will, wasn't as a kid. So many people have experiences as children. Me, I was a 20-year-old corrections officer in the Dade County Jail. And I was brand new on the job. I was just starting my law enforcement career. And I watched a figure walk down one of the cell blocks. Nothing ghostly or wispy about it. It was a person. And then they were gone. And the guys I was working with, I told them about it. They went out to look. There's nobody here, Lawson. And that was my first experience. But that's really not what got me going. What happened was, it was in 2010, my now oldest son, wanted to go to St. Augustine for an event, for a ghost tour at the lighthouse. And I took him up there, and we'd gone through the lighthouse tour once, Dark of the Moon, really cool tour. We liked it so much, we said, let's do it again. So we went back through, and the guide said, look, smaller group this time, so I'm going to take all of them into the lightkeeper's house. Because you guys have done it before, I'm going to let you have the lighthouse to yourself.
Oh, that's
Nice.
so awesome.
So Ryan and I are sitting on like the 4th floor, I believe, of the lighthouse. Could not hear anything below. And 3 young ladies died, little girls died during the construction of it. And they have reputed to be haunting the lighthouse since. So we're sitting on the 4th floor, and we unmistakably heard little girls laughing. As a cop, the first thing I do is I start looking for wires and speakers.
Right.
Could find nothing that would explain what we heard. It was at that moment that I said, look, this is the greatest mystery of all time. I'm a detective by trade. This is the greatest mystery of all time. I want to start finding answers. That's when we created the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation shortly thereafter, and then Indian River Hauntings as the following. That's how I got into it.
That's amazing. That's such an awesome story that has such a significant history in the area. That's amazing. That's really cool. Now, how about you guys? How did you get into what piqued your interest in the paranormal?
Well, I've always been a history fanatic, and I'm a volunteer for the Martin County Historical Society at the House of Refuge. I'm a tour guide.
Okay.
Gilbert's Bar House of Refuge was put there for shipwreck victims in the 1870s. Oldest building in Martin County. And not only do I love history, I've always been a sucker for a good story.
Right.
And I've always loved stories about paranormal. You know, I'm a huge Stephen King fan and Dean Koontz. And,
oh, yeah.
And I like I say, I write books.
Right.
And I've always had the same questions that people have had, you know, since the end of the Civil War. You know, what happens when we die? So I've never been like an overly religious person, but I know that the energy that someone has, what happens to that energy?
Right.
Because when they're gone, if you've ever been in a room with someone who's passed away, recently my mom passed away, and I was in the room when she passed from one state to another, and
sorry to hear that.
It was almost like a vacuum sucked all the energy out of the room. She was gone, and what was there on the bed was not her. And to me, and that's a question that people have asked for thousands of years. Where is that energy? Where did she go? Is it organized? Is it disorganized? Does it scatter? And to me, that is the most interesting part of what we do, because we are seekers.
Right.
If you ask me, the paranormal studies field is still in its infancy.
Absolutely.
And people look at Ed and Lorraine Warren, you know, from the Conjuring, you know, the original ghost hunters, and people thought they were crazy. They did it, but they didn't care, and they persevered. And now look at them today.
Yeah,
they are
absolutely.
immensely popular.
Yes,
because of the pioneering they did. And And another thing I have to say is I met my wife.
There you
My wife has always, her whole entire life, and she will tell you, been an absolute 100% believer in paranormal. And hanging out with her is through osmosis. I just, my historical stuff, and it just made a good fit.
Yeah.
Because I love the history, she loves the paranormal.
Right.
And it just worked from there, and the rest is history.
There you go. An apropos way to end that with yourself being a historian. Now, yourself, Trish, how did you, what really brought you into the world of the paranormal?
I was 11.
Okay.
And my dad was getting ready for work.
Mm-hmm.
And he just didn't look like he was feeling well. And I asked him, "Are you okay?" And he says, "Yeah, I'm okay. Just don't feel good." And so I told him to stay home. I'm 11 years old. He said, No, I got to go to work. Okay. So he went to work. He was a special delivery postman at the time. And he had a Jeep. And he came back to the post office and parked it and leaned on the horn. So they just thought he was being a pain in the butt. But what happened, he had a massive coronary, and he was, over the horn. So being 11 and being the only one to see him the last time, I had a lot of guilt, a lot of frustration, and I kept on mentally saying, just let me know you're okay. Just, and I'm tenacious. If
Right.
you know me, I will gnaw your ankles off. So I kept it up and I kept it up.
Right.
And I'm going to show my age now. I was sitting on my bed, and the needle came up, went on the record, probably played for maybe 10 seconds. It felt like a whole lot more. And I'm sitting there looking at it, and the first thing I did, was go and unplug it. And I sat back down and did it again. Same thing. So at the second time, I'm like, duh, that's my dad.
Right.
And it was his way of telling me that he had passed over. So from 11 on, my passion for the paranormal just continues to peak. As far as the ghost tour, we were having dinner at one of the local restaurants. And they were talking to Patrick because he's showing the books, and everyone knows I'm into the paranormal. You just talk to me for 10 minutes, you can figure it out.
Right.
So we started talking about ghost tours that we took back and forth. And
Right.
they said, why don't we have one here? And we said, I don't know. So that kind of planted the seed. Patrick started doing all the study on Portulano and its history. Mm-hmm. It has a wide, very diverse history. I was surprised. And then the parts that were closer to the house, I took my team out with some equipment, and we went to see if we could do anything. Of course, the equipment reacted well at some points, other points not so well. And when we first did it, they were like, who the hell are these people? You know what I mean? Walking
Right.
around with meters and
Right.
cameras. And now they love it. They have a loving feeling about us. But back then...
Of course, just
it
like
was
with anything.
And it was 12 years ago, so it wasn't like today.
Right.
The paranormal has become more or less public. Is that a good word?
Yeah.
In the forefront, yeah.
Yeah, in the
I
forefront.
think that's a good way to put it.
And, 12 years ago, it wasn't cool. It was just weird people.
Right.
So between the history and the paranormal, opposites attract. Here we are.
There you go.
And it worked out really, really well. And Patrick and I wrote the first two books, the Ghosts of the Treasure Coast and Pirates and Smugglers of the Treasure Coast. We are still happily married after writing two books. And in November we'll be married 30 years.
Congratulations.
Thank
We're the
you.
same
That's
age,
amazing.
and we have the same name.
Yeah, right.
Meant to be.
And you said opposites attract. Come
Yeah,
on, let's
I
be real. Now, speaking of the ghost tours, and you both do the paranormal tours and everything like that, of course, that's the bread and butter. That's what, that's the main part of what you do. But you also have the investigative part where you're going out, you're checking out different sites, you are following up on the ghost stories, things like that. So, what are some of the craziest, or what are some of the coolest spots that you've ever investigated, not part of your tour?
Wow. Locally?
And locally, anywhere. I mean, if it's in the Treasure Coast, awesome. But I mean, if you have a cool story, like just something that stands out to you.
Well, my team and I went up to Rock, West Virginia last November.
Okay.
Way too cold for a group from Florida, we found out. We thought it was going to be a little warmer. But we were at the Lake Shawnee Haunted and Abandoned Amusement Park up in Rock, West Virginia. It's fairly well-known paranormal area. It's been on a couple of shows, and we had the opportunity to go up there. And that was quite an experience because it was an amusement park that, unbeknownst to the owners at the time, was built on top of a Indian burial ground. And the stuff that came out of that was pretty interesting. We've got a picture on our website that we still can't explain. It's a beam of light that you first look at it, you think it might be a camera flare or something. But then it can't be when you see the little dark spot at the top of the picture where the light's emanating from. It's very interesting. On the Treasure Coast, wow. Tremendous history on the Treasure Coast. Some very haunted areas. Fellsmere is very haunted. Between the old schoolhouse in Fellsmere, Waldo's Secret Garden, the Boston House in Fort Pierce.
Okay.
We've investigated all those, and I would say those are the
coolest in the Treasure Coast.
I wouldn't say up there. We've been to a lot of cool places, but if I had to pick the spookiest spots, I have to go there.
Spooky works. I like spooky, especially for the tone of the episode. How about you guys? What are some of your spookiest or some of your favorite places that you've investigated?
Well, we've investigated the House of Refuge on Hudson Island several times, and every time we go there, the place is just amazing. Like, you get different things in different parts. Like out in the boathouse, the last time we did an investigation there, we met a female entity who was in the boathouse, and she was angry.
Yeah?
Yes, she was mad about something, and we think our theory was that she was a lady of the evening, and she was there for the sailors, and something happened in the boathouse.
Right.
So we encountered her. We've encountered entities, and Tricia can tell you a little bit more about inside of the actual House of Refuge. But to me, like, you have sailors that died in front of the house, in shipwrecks. Hundreds of shipwrecks in the Gulf Stream right there, and that was the place they went. That was the beacon in the darkness. So to me, that is probably the premier site in our area that we have been to. Right.
Okay. And now, with the investigations and stuff like that, are there any places that you guys have done together? Like, have you gone to any investigations together?
Yeah,
in Fellsmere.
Then that was part of Para-Unity that Larry had hosted that year. And we got to go to the above, right? The library, the school.
The school and the Marsh Landing restaurant.
There you go.
Yeah.
And
which is interesting because the Marsh Landing I've seen 3 full-bodied apparitions in my career of doing this, and 2 of them are in the Marsh Landing restaurant. So
we had activity in the school.
Right. School's always been active also, no doubt.
Beth, our co-leader, I guess, she, no matter what we buy, high-tech equipment, all she wants to do is use dowsing rods. That's her thing. And we were at the school, and she had this full conversation with this little girl as she was sitting on the floor with the dowsing rods. And yes,
it may have been Elizabeth, yeah. And I think it's important to note, though, when we say full conversation, we don't have, like we're having now, it's not that type of thing. It's mostly yes and no questions that are answered via our equipment, generally speaking. We do have some piece of equipment, the spirit box, for example, where things can come out. But pretty fascinating stuff, especially when you're using one piece of equipment and you've got 2 or 3 other pieces that are reacting at the same time.
Right.
It kind of corroborates.
Yeah, it gives you that ability to know that it's not a fluke. Because if you have numerous things going off at the same time, chances are that there's something going on.
Right, but therein lies the big question, what exactly is doing it? And that's the answer we all seek.
Right.
Nobody really knows. I mean, we have ideas.
Right.
But it's all theory at this point, and that's what we're working on, is the theories in order to uncover the truth.
Right, and speaking of, that it's a theory and that, it's not proven and stuff like that, you were speaking about like 12 years ago, it was not as commonplace as it is now. And that back in the time, back in 12 years ago, or even probably to this day, I'm sure that you guys get people that are disbelievers.
Well, sure.
That are, that maybe might mock you or anything like that because they think that, ghosts aren't real or anything like that. What do you say to any non-believers that would question or would mock what it is that you do? Like,
basically, be true to your word. Even if someone's not agreeing, don't start agreeing with them just because you're there. Just to be honest, and these are my values, this is what I believe. And we had this issue when we were selling the books. We had one gentleman, he must have been a little bit intoxicated.
A little bit?
And
it was at a pirate festival.
It was a pirate festival.
Okay.
And he came and he started talking to us. He was really nice, like, how's this and what do you do and what about this tour? And then all of a sudden, like, he flipped and started calling us, screaming, charlatans and every other name that we could probably think of.
Oof.
So in the immediate present, we're like, oh crap, this guy, stay behind the table, he'll go away. So thankfully his girlfriend came and took him away.
Right.
And then we kind of talked about it and we said, in a way, that's a compliment.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I can see that.
I think that you have different groups.
Of course.
Like you have the 10% of hardcore believers.
Right.
Not that many that are 100%, like my wife and like myself.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the 10% that are hardcore skeptics.
Right.
That will look for any avenue to disagree with you.
Even if the evidence hits them in the face, they'll still disagree with it.
You're never going to convince these people.
Right.
Don't try.
And then you have the rest, which are maybe. And those are the people that we get, at our tours and that are by the books and they're just like, yeah, that's pretty cool, especially this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we have encountered.
Right.
On my end, and I totally agree with what they're saying, but when I talk to somebody that's unsure or even a hardcore skeptic, first thing I say to them is, for millenniums, people have been experiencing things. College-educated individuals, respected individuals, scientists. Something has happened that has caused them to believe that something else exists.
Right.
So all of these people can't be wrong. There's got to be something out there. The question is what it is. So let's work together and find it. And to do that, you got to keep an open mind. I've been asked questions. You're a cop. How can you believe this? And it's true. My entire career was taking evidence to a jury of my peers to prove beyond a reasonable doubt something exists, correct?
Right.
We're not there yet with the paranormal. But you say, why do I believe in it? I'm a cop. If I was to come to your house to investigate a crime, do you want me to walk into the room and just based upon my personal feelings decide who did it? Decide what happened? Or would you rather I have an open mind and look at all the evidence before I come to a conclusion? That's where I'm coming from. I'm looking at the evidence to come to a conclusion. And that's what you want in your law enforcement. That's what we do in the paranormal. We're looking at the evidence to come to the appropriate conclusion.
That's amazing. That it really does make sense when you put it that way, that, naturally you're going to have, with anything, you're going to have skeptics. But those people that are on the fence or those people that are true believers, that's who you're reaching out to. But yeah, you want to do that full, thorough research. You want to investigate as much as you can to get all of the evidence as possible. That's very true. You had mentioned something about this time of year, being October, being Halloween, being spooky season. What does this do for, what does this time of year do for your business, whether it comes to the books or the tours?
We're very popular.
I'm sure.
October, we're extremely popular. But in a more spiritual note, some people believe that as we get closer and closer to Halloween, the veil between the two worlds thins.
Right.
And that you get more paranormal activity in the month of October and November. Yes or no? I mean, our tours, we're doing like every Saturday night. And going back to what Larry was saying, some people come on the tour because they want to learn the history or they want to see what's happening. And other people are dragged. They're coming with me, you know.
Right,
So it's
right.
it's that the coming with you part is, can they keep the open mind and just go on the tour to make their kid, husband, wife happy.
Right.
So yeah.
And also, I think people like getting
Be
away
scared.
from the spiritual, the intellectual side. People just like to be scared sometimes.
Yeah.
They enjoy this type of year because it's spooky, it's scary. So
Right.
there's some of that element to this time of year. Now, frankly, both of us, all of us, I should say, we do tours all year round because people do still want the answers.
Absolutely.
But October definitely is
Right.
a high point.
Right.
When I took the tour with Larry, he gave a tour of Fellsmere, and I went out and he walked all over the place, and man, I liked him right away
Yeah.
because he knew everything
Right.
about that town. And I said,
Right.
that guy, I want to follow him. I want to listen to what he says.
There you go.
And
Thank you.
when I take ghost tours, like whenever Trish and I travel, we look for the ghost tours
Yeah.
because we like it was a dark and scary night. Those stories, you know,
Right.
if they're tied in with history, that makes them even better.
Right.
For me.
Well, they have to be tied in with some kind of history.
Yeah.
Well, without history, none of this makes sense.
Exactly.
Right.
You're not investigating something that's here now. You're
Right.
investigating something in the past.
Right.
So without the historical context,
You
it
got
doesn't
nothing.
make sense.
Right.
So
When you investigate a home, you want to know when the house was built, what was it before, you know, before you even go in. You know, just kind of do some searches and find out if there's anything significant. We did a home in Port St. Lucie, and the mother called, and she was serious. She said, you guys need to come and tell me yes or no. I said, well, first of all, we're not going to tell you yes or no if it's safe to stay or not. But I can tell you, you know, what we found. So we were investigating the house, and back then, not now, I had a habit of smoking. So I went outside, snuck outside to have a cigarette. Well, my cigarette was gone. I was just listening to a recorder, and I noticed that I could see my breath, like when it's very cold, and it just kept on happening. So I called for Beth to come outside, a fellow investigator, and I said, do you see this? She says, yeah. I said, try it. And she did it, nothing. I said, switch spots. And it happened to her. And we felt something, like maybe a child or something on our lower legs. And we're like, what is this? So we started investigating more and more and more. That was my one of my strongest connections with animals, because what we found out, the dogfighting ring was right on her property or close.
Oh, wow.
So that the animals were reaching out
Right.
to me was one of the more amazing stories that we have. That was an amazing
That one
story.
touched you. That one.
Absolutely.
Right.
You know, because they were reaching out to people, which, wow.
Right.
Wow.
Right. That's amazing. Now, naturally, you guys brought the books with you, and I see your check in there. I was going to ask, like, what is it that you've brought with us? Do you have any kind of cool proof or any kind of fun stuff for us to
we
check
have
out
pictures.
here?
This is just so you know what we're talking about when we're talking. And Larry knows this.
PS7, PSB7.
This is a spirit box or a Frank box.
Okay.
Okay. This is the older version. I have the other version in my bag. It's much bigger.
Right.
This is easy to travel with. And basically what it does is it scans AM/FM radios, just white noise. And then you listen for above or below the static to see if you can pick anything up. Let's see.
Nikolai Tesla did a lot of work on radio waves and its connection to the paranormal. Jurgensen and Friedrich Jurgensen and Rodive, who were around the early part of the last century, were pioneers in this area. All scientists.
Right.
Nikolai Tesla, of course, is well known. Edison even talked about it. So that's kind of where, and it's a much more complicated than that, but that's where the theory of using radio waves comes in.
Okay.
Okay, and if I do this right, we use this. We actually use the larger one, and I can pull it out in a minute, on the tour, because it's easier to see when there are a lot of people there. So I'm just going to put it on. I doubt we're going to get anything, but I can at least, so you guys can at least see. Okay, we're going to sweep forward. Come on.
You hear that? That's it, scanning radio frequencies very fast. And
Very quickly, yes.
You can set it at different levels. And what you're looking for is, like Trish said, either the valleys or the peaks
Right.
of the radio wave.
When we use this on the tour, there was something there, I don't know what it was. When we use it on the tour, we use it, there it goes. You usually ask your questions. And when we're doing the tour, we'll ask questions of these spirits that we've told their tale, their story. And then I open it up. But I tell people you can come and ask questions, but there's only 2 questions that you can ask. Because I don't want anyone falling apart because they spoke to someone who just passed away.
Right.
It's amazing what we find when the people start asking questions of what happened last week. We were sitting there, and this woman asked a question, and all of a sudden, it was a complete battery drain. And I had just put the new batteries in when we went out. That's it. It drained, and it shut itself off.
Wow.
Yeah. And before that, a woman asked about her mother, and a female voice came through twice. One of the more interesting stories is we asked them if they get a reaction, ask the person something that only you and that person would know. So we did that, and the thing that came across the box was the word dragon. And you can tell the rest of the story.
The gentleman came up and he said, "All right, I'll try it." And he said, "Hey, Grandpa, are you there?" His grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
And we heard it over the Frank box clearly. He said, "Where's the dragon?"
Yep.
And the guy almost passed out.
Right.
Literally.
He could not believe what he had heard.
Right, his face
And
was
we're like,
white.
"What's wrong, man?" Like, I had to go over and he said, "When we were kids, my grandfather used to tell us there was a dragon in the basement. Go down and check on the dragon."
Wow.
So, and you hear the noise, you hear and you're like, "Oh, I hear radio signals coming through." Yes, you do. But the theory is, like I said, when the spirit passes from the body, what happens to that energy? Does it scatter? And do we get blips of someone trying to come through? And I've had people say, "Well, if a spirit wants to contact you, why don't they just come out like we are and tell us?"
Right.
Why all this? Why all this?
Right.
And what our theory on that is, and maybe Larry agrees, is it's very difficult for a spirit to contact us, just as it's difficult for us to contact them.
Right.
So we provide what we can for avenues for them to do that, to possibly help them contact us.
That's amazing. That's so fantastic. It's so interesting to be able to hear and see everything that you guys do and be able to kind of get an idea of exactly what it is that you do as a paranormal investigator, and especially the tours and everything else. We are running out of time, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pass it to you guys, so that way you can go ahead and plug your ghost tours, plug anything else that you have going on. You can let our viewers and listeners know how they can get in touch with you if they are interested in the paranormal or if they would like to take a ghost tour. So why don't you go ahead and let everybody know about your tours.
Indian River Hauntings, you can get our schedule that's put out monthly at www.indianriverhauntings.com. You can also reach me at ghostguy59@gmail.com. Easiest way to get a hold of me. But we do our tours in Sebastian, downtown Vero Beach, on the beach in Vero, and we have events out in Fellsmere, Florida. So we'd love to have you join us to learn more about our neck of the woods, both historically and haunted-wise.
Thank you so much. And you guys?
We have Portulano ghost tours. At this time of year, it's every week. When it comes summertime, it's we still do them, but it's by reservation
Okay.
because it's hot and it's a little bit buggy, but we do it year round. We are also Mesmerized Paranormal Investigations, and we have been that for about 14 years,
Okay.
formerly with that name. So a lot of people reach out to us because they need help and they don't know quite what's going on at their house. And so we have that. There's two things I just want to talk about quick is the House of Refuge. Now, quarterly, what we've been doing is having an investigation at the House of Refuge, which myself and Off the Trail Paranormal, and we take 16 people, 8 people go one group, 8 people go to another, and we do an actual investigation at the House of Refuge.
Okay.
To help benefit the House of Refuge. And because they're doing painting and things like that,
Right.
scaffolding, they don't think it's safe, and they told us, we're really sorry, but until the scaffolding comes down,
Right.
it's not safe.
Makes sense.
So the Elliott Museum reached out to us, and they are allowing us to do the same thing we did at the House of Refuge. We're going to have 16 people, small group. We're going to have the 2 paranormal groups, and we're going to investigate the Elliott
Museum.
And from the Elliott, they showed us a from the Civil War, they
have an amputation kit which they're going to bust out.
From the Civil War.
You know, from the Civil
Right.
War, and they have the automobiles. They have a hearse.
2 hearses.
They're going to pull and an ambulance.
Very
And they're going to
cool.
allow us to check those out, and it's going to be awesome.
That is definitely
Yeah,
going to
it's
be
gonna be
awesome.
fun.
It's going to be very, very educational, very informative. If you guys are interested at all in checking out that tour with the Elliott Museum, you guys have that as a reservation only kind of thing,
Yes.
correct?
You have to contact the Elliott.
Contact the Elliott or go on the website. If you go on the website, you can buy tickets there.
Okay.
What I can say is every time we've done it at the House of Refuge, we have sold out. So
Right.
I am sure the Elliott will be the same because we're the first paranormal group that they're allowing to do this.
So definitely get your tickets now if you are interested because they will sell out. Thank you guys so much for being here with us today. On behalf of Larry and Patrick and Trish, my name is Joshua Flores. I've been your host. And once again, like we say, if you're not a fan of the paranormal, if you're not a fan of the spooky, if you're not a fan of Halloween, then please don't come here.